Alright guys, so I've done it again. I've bought another bike sight unseen from the internet. This time it's a 2020 NBC 110 Honda.
Hey guys, Troy from the future here. So I actually have to correct myself there because this bike is not an NBC 110. It's actually a C110X, which succeeded the NBC 110 as used for the postal bikes here in New Zealand and I'm assuming Australia. Essentially the same bike. The body does look a little different, or panel wise anyway. Motor appears to be the same and they share a lot of the like parts. So any of the sprockets or chains or anything like that that are listed online are listed for both bikes. So I'm assuming that they are still reasonably compatible on most parts. So just a little clarification for my mistake there. I do see the humour in the fact that I bought a bike without actually knowing the exact model that it was. Only I would do something like that. But let's get back to the episode.
Have had one of these before. You guys have seen me modify one. I've just picked this up from one of the auction houses here in Christchurch and I'm going to attempt to ride it home. So 80,000 kilometres on this little beast. It's an XNZ post bike and it's about as rough as you'd expect, but it does start when I turn the key on. There we go. So guys, we'll glove up and take this chilly Christchurch morning and try and ride this thing home. Let's see how we go. Broken mirrors, that seems pretty standard for these things. Full tank of fuel though. Winning. Alright. Off we go. It's been a while since I've ridden a semi-auto, so it's going to take some getting used to again, but second gear, third gear, fourth gear. Well, it's got all its gears. Guys, I'll be honest with you, I found this on the internet earlier this morning. I was in need of a bike for the Tranz Alpine Scooter Safari, so this is what I'll be using. This is the shakedown ride. Oh goodness. Clear run. Doesn't feel too bad. It's about as nimble as they usually are. Feels like steering might be cocked off to the right ever so slightly. I don't know what's going on there, but we'll have a look at that later. The wheels feel nice and balanced. I have no idea what the tyres are like. I have no idea what the tyre pressures are like. Actually, in saying that, I'm now feeling a bit of a bounce on the front wheel, so that front tyre, that front rim is probably out of balance somewhat. But I don't know, 80,000 Ks on a 110cc motor is probably what you'd expect. I've just noticed that when my foot's on the brake pedal, the indicator slows down. On, off, on. Oh, fantastic. I wonder how the Oxford grips go. I'll have to have a look at them later. For an 80k bike, it actually feels remarkably smooth. It's still got all the random brackets on the handlebars. One's loose as buggery. I'm assuming from like postal carrier thing that they have on the front of these. I'm not really sure. It'd be interesting to go through this bike and give it a once over. guys, after that motorway run, it actually feels like it's quite solid. Being an XNZ post bike, I was expecting the usual rattly sort of sound from the motor, especially given the Ks, but the Ks might be the saving grace in this case, because I'd say that it's had the timing chain, or at least the timing gear done, because these normally have a hell of a rattle in the top end. But this one feels nice and solid. Even down low, it seems to pull quite well. I am noticing now that it's starting to warm up. It does smell a bit oily, so I'm assuming that it's got all the usual shit underneath the motor. So I'll degrease that, give it all a clean off, and just give it its best option of not catching fire, I suppose. But first impressions are good. Sat at a decent speed on the motorway for what the bike is and for my weight. I got, I think I saw 85 out of it, maybe 90 at a push. Not something you want to be doing all the time on these little motors, but you know, it's quite peppy for a 110. The fuel injection definitely helps on these though. It's a little more lineal than the carbies can be. But guys, it looks like I've got quite a bit of traffic to get through, so it'll be a good test to see how this handles sitting in traffic. It should be fine. I'm not expecting any problems. These little motors are bulletproof. So we'll come back to you when we've got a bit of open road. Well guys, my first impressions of this bike that I didn't own less than an hour ago are all pretty good. The feeling in the handlebars is that it is pulling to the right hand side ever so slightly. I don't know, I'll have a look at that and see what's going on. But it rides about as smooth as these normally ride. The wheels do feel like they could use a balance. Gearbox shifts pretty nicely. Getting used to that semi-auto is going to take some time again. Motor feels strong. Again, this is a super high K bike. Oh, there we go. Quite a bit of a wobble in the front end actually. That's something I'll definitely have to address to see what's going on there. But realistically, you get what you pay for, and this was a cheap and cheerful one. So we'll get this home to the workshop and we'll give it a once over and see what we find.
Alright guys, so we survived the ride home, and it's now time to have a bit of a look over this bike. It's actually reasonably tidy. I do love that it's got the factory LED headlight. That's a nice little upgrade from the NBCs. We did mention on the ride that it's still got all the weird mounts that they would have used for the bags as the Postal Service bike. All the mirrors are really untidy. Cable ties, which I'm assuming we're holding all these on. I might have to do that as a fix. Got a pretty much a $0 budget for this one, so Scooter Safari is coming up quickly, and this was bought on a whim, but that's how I do things. So it's obviously got the usual scuff marks and stuff on the panels there. It is just really grubby. These bikes are usually well maintained for the Postal Service, but it's a get it done sort of deal. Now, the lower half of the chain guard's obviously missing, so it would be nice to try and source one of those, but I've only got a couple of days, so that's not going to happen. So it is all going to have to be a bit of a quick process with this one. I don't have a huge timeline to get the bike ready for the Safari, but it's just going to be a basic once over. So we'll give the bike an oil change. I like to do that just so I know when it was done, and it's also good to get a bit of an idea of what's going on in the motor. So if there's anything metallic that's coming out with the oil, you know you've got big problems. Really hoping not to see that, because I'm going to have to send this bike regardless. I might give it a clean. It definitely needs that. I'll degrease and lubricate the chain, make sure it's got a good adjustment on it. We'll get those brackets off. I'll see if I can tidy those mirrors up somewhat, get the electrical tape off, and see if I can't fix it with cable ties, you know, something a bit dodgy. And it would be nice to put some sort of container on that luggage rack, just so I've got somewhere to store the spare fuel can and stuff like that for the Safari. So, it's enough talking about it. Let's get into this thing. Guys, it appears that we've got a bit of an interesting fix here. This mirror has obviously come loose and given up at some point, so instead of being replaced, they've just sort of jammed, I don't even know what they are, like some plastic spacers of some description in where the ball rotates. Just pulled the
guide or the cover back up over it. A bit of black electrical tape and some cable ties. To be really honest, I don't think I've got a set of mirrors that I can put on this yet, so I'll have to dig through the stocks. If I can't find mirrors to replace the ones that are on it, then I will just have to make what's on it work. Alright, that is the oil change done. So we'll give it a start up and see how it sounds.
That's actually idling really nicely.
So interestingly enough, guys, when I was just filming that little startup video, I noticed that the bike's got the bar end on the left, but not the right. So that would explain, or potentially explain, why I had that shaking in the handlebars on the ride home. Quite a bit of a wobble in the front end, actually. So I am definitely going to have to do something to address that. I can't have the handlebars shaking around all over the place when I'm about to do a big ride with this thing. So, like I said, pretty much a $0 build, so I'm going to have to dig through and see what parts I've got.
Alright, so there's something to be said about never throwing anything away. So, I've actually got some, well, technically they're handguards, but they're flimsy plastic, so they wouldn't guard you from anything. They're kind of wind covers. I think they're originally off a scooter, but we used these on the keyways for the keyway to the island ride, and they did actually block the wind quite nicely. And in digging through my bolts and boxes, I found some hardware that I can use to mount these guys up to the Postie bike. And these end caps, these little red Zeta racing ones, I don't even remember what I bought those for. They've just been hanging around, so they're going to get used on this bike. Threads all work for this, which is awesome. I've just tried that. It's probably not ideal to not have the weighted bar end on these things. I don't know how much they require those for the lack of vibration or to dampen the vibration, but I am working with essentially no budget on this bike, so it's going to have to be some bit of shed ingenuity and using the parts that I've got. Just thankful that I actually did have those bits hanging around. So guys, let's get them fitted to the bike and see how it all comes up.
Righto guys, we managed to get those fitted up. Wasn't too bad, a little bit of fiddly work, but nothing too crazy. They are super flimsy. They're not going to do you any protection in a crash whatsoever, but they're only there to block the wind, and that should work nicely. As mentioned, it was all stuff that I had hanging around. The nice red bar caps, or bar end, sorry. Again, no idea what I had those for. Just happened to work out nicely that I have a red bike to put them on. These brackets here, they're actually the ones that the bike came with. They were originally on the handlebars. There was 4. You would have remembered me saying that in the start of the episode. I just cleaned them up and put a bit of black paint on them. New hardware, which I actually happened to have kicking around, so that was a win. These little extended brackets here were originally on these to make them work with the keyway, and it all actually just works nicely. So guys, that's one little job done. That should keep the hands a bit warmer and keep some wind off of them. The next job is to put something there for storage. Now this is a solution that I've come up with, guys. This plastic tub I use for storing bits and pieces around the place, mostly tools, but it's actually pretty close to being a good fit width-wise. I don't know, looks crap, but it should do. It's just a plastic drum. Again, I've got all this hardware. Digging through everything, I managed to find a flat washer. There's a spring washer there, the nut and the bolt. I've got a couple of different lengths there, so we'll see what we can use. And what I'm hoping to be able to do is utilise the original holes that are drilled through here, so I'm not making any more holes in this. Again, that would have been from the luggage carrier that they used delivering the post. So I'll do some measuring, do some drilling, and we'll look at fitting this bucket onto the back of the bike. Okay, so took some measurements, didn't take a lot, it was actually not too bad. 330 wide by 232 long, and I don't know if you'll see on camera, we've drilled the holes and just marked the bottom. So that is good to go. However, we do have more fun and games because the flat washers that I want to put into these things to give it a bit of structure on the plastic don't line up nicely. They actually look pretty good on camera there, but they're a couple of mil out. So I'm going to have to shave some of this top edge and some of this back edge. So I'll do that, and I'll come back to you once that's done. Well, there's the first one, guys. Pretty straightforward, just a bit of grinding to do, but if you can see, that now lines up perfectly with the hole, and we can drill our bolt straight through. So, not the prettiest of jobs in the world, but it'll do, and 3 more to go. But through the magic of editing, all 4 are now done. So guys, that's got the bucket or container, whatever you want to call it, mounted to the back of the bike. It is solid as a rock, so I'm not concerned about that going anywhere at all. And we've obviously got the handguards on. So that's going to do it for today, guys. The handguards are made up out of components that I found kicking around in the shed, so I'm pretty happy that it all worked out like that. Again, the container was just something that I had laying around. It's kind of interesting to try and do a $0 build. Obviously not $0 having bought the bike, but spending no money in trying to get it ready. Makes you sort of think of solutions that you normally wouldn't. But guys, I'm happy with where we're at, so I think we'll call it a day, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.